Yeah, Michelle, hopefully we can reassure some of the parents this evening. So as you've seen over the last month through kind of the Omicron wave, we've seen huge numbers of cases of Omicron across the country, and that's kind of seen itself kind of through to children as well. They didn't go up as fast to start with because remember, primary schools were kind of closed over the Christmas period, and we do know that when children kind of go back to school, they start spreading the virus. So yeah, we're seeing record cases. So that sounds quite alarming, and then because there's so many more cases in society, we're also seeing kind of record numbers of children in hospital with COVID. So again, that sounds alarming. So people are thinking, oh, hang on now, why aren't we trying to close the schools to stop the spread of COVID? So I think what we need to start looking at then is the wider context in all of this. Because if just take an example, if 100% of children or the 100% of the population had COVID, everybody who goes into hospital who has a test, you see record numbers of people with COVID. So each Thursday we get some numbers from NHS England, and what we're seeing now is over half the patients, or around half of patients of people in hospital now with COVID. This is across all ages, by the way, are in hospital with COVID, but not specifically because of it. And that's kind of what we're seeing through the Omicron variant. If we look at children, the best way, Michelle, to really understand what's going on here is to look at the total number of children who were in hospital. So I've been looking at that from the end of November right through to a few days ago. And actually, through this Omicron wave, we've got fewer children actually in hospital than what we had before the Omicron wave hit us around the mid-December. So the stats actually show we're not seeing any more children in hospital through the Omicron wave. We are picking up more children with Omicron, and somebody tweeted me today to say they were in Great Ormond Street. Their child was in Great Ormond Street to have an operation. They'd had COVID a few months back. Hopefully, it's not a serious operation, but they tested positive when they went in, but they're not in because of COVID, and that's what you've got to understand with the numbers. We're not seeing more children overall in hospital through this Omicron wave.
And, I admit, I do tend to split hairs when it comes to with and from, because I think it's such an important statistic to focus on. You mentioned there that some of the children, they're there with it as opposed to from it. Do we have any idea on what that kind of looks like, roughly what percentage of children are hospitalised with and specifically because of COVID?
Yeah, well, if we look at the younger children, Michelle, about 2/3 of them actually find out that they have COVID when they go into the hospital. So, it's a significant number. If Omicron was leading to huge numbers of extra children falling ill, you'd expect to see more children in hospital now than what we saw before the kind of this record rising cases. But we're not seeing that, as I say, it's coming down. And that's just hospitalizations. We do know that the discharge time is no different to pre-COVID times. Is about the average child gets discharged within 2 days. And then if we start focusing on the death statistics, which are obviously at the more extreme end, it's very, very rare for a child to die with COVID. There's two distinctions we can look at here. Children who die where COVID is mentioned on the death certificate. And if we look at all the deaths in the last kind of year or so, it's like 0.09% of all the deaths with COVID among kind of children. And that's just with COVID mentioned on the death certificate, not specifically if it was the cause of the death. And an indicator to look at that, Michelle, is in October, we had 6 deaths with children where it was mentioned on the death certificate that COVID was kind of on as part of the death, but only one of those 6, it was the main factor. Each death is tragic for each family, especially for children. But remember, we do have significant numbers of children who die every single week, and it's very rare for children to die of COVID. In particular, people to go into hospital specifically because of COVID. We're not seeing any increases through the Omicron wave.
I have to say, Jamie, listening to you, it does certainly kind of reassure me because, as I always mention on this programme, and as you know anyway, I am a mum. So when I see anything to do with children, I immediately kind of think, oh gosh, do I need to think differently, do differently? So it's reassuring to hear what you say. Is there anything else that anyone should be aware of in relation to child hospitalisations with COVID before I let you go?
No, I just think the main thing is, I've seen people tweeting, I've seen news articles about these record numbers of children with COVID in hospital. Don't be alarmed by these. Obviously, COVID is going to cause some illnesses in some people. The vast majority of children, you talk about record cases. We're seeing people going into hospital with COVID, as I say, with not specifically for it, rising. But we're talking like huge numbers of cases. My children, 6 and 8, had COVID very mild. In fact, they were probably had more fun at home. This isn't obviously for everybody the same thing, but it's very rare for children to get seriously ill. And I think seeing these numbers and record numbers, people are going to start getting scared. But the facts don't really back up any scare stories.
Jamie Jenkins, thank you certainly for reassuring me and hopefully some of our other viewers. Thank you for your time.